Hi, folks. Welcome to this new episode of the RiseUp Radio. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you're joining us from. It's a very special episode, I must say. And we have Rick Carson with us today. Rick is a veteran in the topic that we're going to be talking, and I'm really, really excited in all the insights that he's going to bring. But before that, quick introductions. So, you all know me. I'm Ashish, and I'm the founder and CEO of Risely. And at Risely, we are helping organizations to build leadership development at scale and democratize hyper-personalized learning for all leaders and managers in the organization. And like I said, we have Rick with us today. Rick, I welcome you to this episode of the RiseUp Radio, and may I invite you to just introduce yourself briefly to our audience and tell us a
Sure.
little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure. I'm familiar with your work, and I think it's wonderful. You do a real service for people,
Thank you.
And leadership especially is there's not a better craft because it's about freeing up people's potential
Yeah.
within themselves and between and among themselves.
Mm.
And it's not an easy thing to learn to do well. People
Yeah.
make a lot of mistakes. So I'm really glad you're doing what you're doing. So in
Awesome.
terms of introduction of me, I've been in practice for 53 years as a psychotherapist and a personal and executive coach. I was being a coach before there was coaching. I
Before
mean,
there was coaching.
my clients call me coach.
Yeah.
Yeah, before there was a coaching
Right.
organization, but that's beside the point. So, in 1970, about 1974, I started developing my own method.
Okay.
And then in 1984, HarperCollins published my first book, which was about that method. And
Okay.
I called the book Taming Your Gremlin.
Mm.
And it's now used by a lot of coaching
Mm.
organizations and graduate schools of social work, psychology, things like that. So I'm really gratified to know it's out there. So anyway, I'll help any way I can. My hope is that
Awesome.
listeners will actually leave here with some stuff they can use
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
immediately.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think that's what the focus is. And folks, as you would have guessed, we are going to talk a lot about gremlins, right? Gremlins that are inside you, gremlins that typically are there in people's mind, typically in leaders and managers' minds. So we're going to be talking about a lot about self-limiting beliefs and fixed mindset. So, Rick, am I on the point when I talk about gremlins equating to fixed mindset and self-limiting beliefs?
Yes. I mean, that's not the whole enchilada. There's
I
more
know.
to it than that. You
Okay.
know, I mean, for instance, people will talk about, oh, yeah, you're talking about, it's becoming a hip term now,
Yeah.
inner critic. Well,
Yeah.
shoot, no. Inner criticism is just one tool of your gremlin.
Hmm.
Your gremlin uses a lot of different tools because your gremlin is your gremlin by virtue of its intention. And its intention is to squelch, really squelch
Hmm.
the vibrant soul that you are.
Wow. Okay.
And people ask me sometimes, Hashish, this is interesting. I'll say, well, where does it come from?
Yeah.
So I'm going to answer it.
Sure.
I don't know. I
Hmm.
don't have any idea, but I've never met a human being that doesn't struggle with that inner duality.
Yeah.
And what I'm really pleased about with the
Hmm.
method, the Gremlin
Hmm.
Timing method,
Hmm.
is it works.
Hmm.
And that's why it's funny, it's never been a blockbuster,
Yeah.
but it's in multiple languages
Hmm.
and has been never been out of publication for HarperCollins since '84
Hmm.
because there's people who pick up on it and really use it. It starts changing everything.
Yeah.
So we'll dive into the method and talk
Yeah.
a little about how it
Awesome.
works.
Awesome. And just
Yeah.
a quick follow-up question, Rick. Does self-awareness play a part in terms of taming the gremlin?
It's the hugest.
Hmm.
I don't know if that's a word.
That's a
It's
big.
the big. It's the biggest part.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not a matter. When I wrote Taming Your Gremlin, the term, the whole beautiful Buddhist movement was not big in the West.
Hmm.
So I had to come up with a term.
Hmm.
And the term I came up with, I really like. I just
Hmm.
called it simply,
Hmm.
I want to underline simply,
Hmm.
noticing,
Hmm.
paying attention,
Hmm.
paying attention to how you're getting in your own way
Yeah.
in the very moment
Hmm.
that you're getting in your own way. So it's not about insight. A lot of my clients are like me. They're psychotherapists.
Hmm.
And so often they'll come with a lot of insight.
Hmm.
They understand their relationship with their mother and how it was with their mom and dad and all.
Hmm.
It's not helpful.
Hmm.
What's helpful is awareness,
Yeah.
noticing,
Yeah.
paying attention to what's going on within you,
Hmm.
around you, and
Hmm.
most importantly, and this takes practice,
Hmm.
what's going on in your own head.
Hmm.
As you said earlier, your own self-limiting
Yeah.
concepts,
Yeah.
your own fears,
Yeah.
okay, your
Right.
own put downs,
Right.
your own regrets, how they're coming into your consciousness in the present moment.
Hmm.
So, and it takes practice.
Yep.
I emphasize that in the books, but I really wish I'd emphasized it more, Hashish.
Hmm. Hmm.
This takes practice. But people who practice really benefit. It
Right.
certainly made a difference in my life, you know.
Awesome. Let's jump into it right away, Rick, then. Let's talk about gremlins first, right? You said that self-limiting beliefs and fixed mindset is part of, the gremlins that we typically have in our minds. What's the rest?
Well, I want to comment on that, but let's keep in mind as we talk about the gremlin
Hmm.
that the gremlin taming method is not really about the gremlin.
Okay.
Okay.
Hmm.
In the same way that when a sculpture goes to a statue or
Hmm.
goes to a piece of stone,
Hmm.
he's within that stone is something.
Hmm.
The gremlin is like the stone that ends up on the floor so the beautiful statue can be
Got it.
revealed.
Got it.
So what we're after is, and you can't circle it with a word, I just
Yeah.
call it the essence of the natural you, your heart of
Right.
hearts,
Right.
is that thing that is on the inside that will
Hmm.
guide you.
Hmm.
Okay?
Hmm.
So to do that, you have to simply notice your gremlin using its tools in the
Okay.
moment it's using its tools. So to answer your question,
Hmm.
uh, think of your gremlin as it's not cute at all, by the
Hmm.
way.
Hmm.
Is someone, it is a part of you that issues poison.
Hmm.
I'll tell you some of the common
Hmm.
poisons. I think this will answer your
Yeah.
question. One is fear.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm. Fear of
Worry.
failure. Fear of
Let's call
failure.
it fear of failure, fear of, it varies for people. The ultimate fear is fear of death, but on
Okay.
a
Yeah.
more common
Yeah.
level, what it starts out with is fear of I'm going to lose my job,
Yeah.
fear I'm going to run out of money, fear they're not going to like me,
Hmm.
uh, fear whatever.
Hmm. Hmm.
And what happens is when that fear comes up, the tendency, which your gremlin wants you to do, that
Hmm.
monster of the mind, and again, I don't know where it comes from, is to watch the horror movie.
Okay.
Okay.
Hmm.
So in the gremlin taming method, what we do is we accentuate, this sounds strange to some people, we accentuate the horror movie
Hmm.
for about 30 seconds or
Hmm.
a minute. A minute's a long time.
Hmm.
In other words, whatever you're afraid of, make it big, make it catastrophic. Okay. Now, typically, there's an absurdity. You start to see an absurdity in the
Hmm.
fear.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
But even this is what's really interesting, Ashish, is even if the fear is not absurd,
Yeah.
because sometimes it's not,
Yeah.
what will become absurd every time is that the person doing this, okay,
Yep.
scaring themselves, is
Hmm.
going to notice I'm sitting here doing this to myself.
Correct.
And the way we accentuate that
Hmm.
is either as you're creating the horror movie or
Hmm.
immediately afterwards, also accentuate what's happening in your body.
Right.
Breathing will be shallow,
Yeah.
your trapezius will be tight,
Yeah.
and that'll be followed by pain or discomfort
Hmm.
wherever your most vulnerable area
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
So I have people accentuate that.
Hmm.
Okay, notice what I'm doing with my hands.
Yeah.
Because what's happening is when we do that, we're retroflecting energy. We're
Correct.
turning it in on ourselves.
Correct.
Okay. So once you notice what you're doing to your body,
Hmm.
there's a natural correction that starts to occur.
Hmm.
It kicks into play the same mechanism
Hmm.
that we used when we learned to walk.
Okay.
We didn't have any insight. We didn't know anything about kinesiology, physiology. We
Correct.
just noticed if we leaned too far to the left, we bumped our head.
Yep.
Well, you notice how you're contributing to your own misery.
Hmm.
Really take responsibility for it, not thinking about it, do it.
Yep.
It's a natural correction that starts to occur. And I've just called it in my books, I call it the Zen
Hmm.
theory of change,
Okay.
which is I free myself from this stuff,
Right.
not by trying to free myself.
Hmm.
It doesn't work. It's never worked for
Hmm.
anybody.
Hmm.
I free myself by really noticing how I am imprisoning
Hmm.
myself,
Hmm.
how I'm doing it to myself.
Yeah.
This is the key. In the very moment in which I'm doing it to myself.
Right.
Okay, so one gremlin tactic is worry and fear.
Hmm.
Worry is always predicated on fear,
Hmm.
and it's completely unnecessary, serves no purpose.
Hmm.
There are other things that your gremlin will use, which we can
Yeah.
go into,
Hmm.
but I'm aware I'm talking a lot, so I want to
No.
be sure that,
No. No. Absolutely. So this is actually, my follow-up question is probably what you wanted to say, right? So we discussed fixed mindset a little bit, right? And we talked about self-limiting beliefs primarily, right?
yeah, yeah.
How can one
So
identify that you have a fixed mindset, or you have some limiting beliefs that are stopping you from achieving much better than what you can achieve?
yeah, well, one of the things is to pay attention to your own language, not just the language you speak, that's
Hmm.
important, but the language in your head.
Hmm.
Anytime you make a definitive statement about yourself
Hmm.
that is limiting,
Hmm.
you can hear it. For instance, people will say to me, I can't remember names. That's not true. It's until now you haven't, but I can't remember, or I can't build anything with my hands. I'm not handy,
Yeah.
or I'm not good at math.
Hmm.
And it's
Yeah.
true, some people have different aptitude than others.
Yeah.
But if I hear that from somebody,
Hmm.
I know it's played through their head thousands of times, maybe not in their foreground, but in their background
And only
for
once
years.
it comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to get them, I want to
Right.
bring that
Right.
into the light.
Okay.
And people can do this for themselves. So if I were working with somebody and they
Hmm.
said, you know, I'm really not a very good student,
Hmm.
I would say, tell me how stupid you are.
Yeah.
Really describe to me,
Hmm.
you know, uh, to milk that,
Yeah.
and there are all sorts of, we
Correct.
can go back into what
Yeah.
I call revisit and redecide,
Hmm.
take them back into
Hmm.
an event where they started to get that idea with their
Hmm.
parents or school or whatever.
Hmm. Hmm.
But it's not about insight, it's to take them back into a place where they can revisit and in their body redecide.
Yeah.
So there are all sorts of self-limiting concepts that come up. That's kind of the granddaddy. You've hit on it. That's the granddaddy of the gremlin
Hmm.
poisons. It's not the only one by any
Right.
means,
Okay.
but
Awesome.
it's the
So
granddaddy.
let's talk a little bit about the professional context that we live in, right? The workplace context, right? How do people around us play a role in developing our fixed mindset? For example, do leaders and seniors that we work with contribute to some extent the fixed mindset that people end up building for themselves?
Picture this. Let's have the people watching the video can
Hmm.
picture it too. Picture the proverbial heart symbol.
Hmm.
Think of that as the essence of who you really are.
Hmm.
A gift to you directly from the creator of this whole shebang. And I don't know how all that works.
Yeah.
Nobody does
Hmm.
really. But it's in there. When it leaves your
Correct.
body, you're a slab of meat, right?
Correct. Correct.
So that thing's in there. But from the time that you popped out on the planet and I
Hmm.
popped out on the planet, we have been bombarded
Hmm.
with experiences, bombarded
Yep.
from what people said to us,
Hmm.
how people responded to us.
Hmm.
You formed ideas
Yep.
about how creative you are,
Hmm.
how successful you're going to be, how
Hmm.
artistic you are, how
Hmm.
good an athlete you are, this is the big one, how you stack up in relation to your peers.
Right.
All of those ideas get in there
Yeah.
pretty solidly by the time you're 6.
Yeah.
Once they're in there, you start to behave in accordance with those so they keep getting reinforced
Yep.
based on those. So there's the heart,
Hmm.
your heart of hearts,
Hmm.
your soul, whatever we want to call it. You
Hmm.
can't circle it with a
Hmm.
word. Wrapped around it are all of those concepts.
Yeah.
Any I'd rather you have a positive self-concept than a negative one,
Hmm.
but any concept is limiting
Yeah.
because you're not a concept.
Correct.
Okay? So there's your heart of hearts, there's those concepts, and based on those concepts, you form your persona, your
Hmm.
style of being,
Yep.
okay? So in the method, what we're doing, what I'm doing, what my people I've trained do, is they help you simply notice,
Hmm.
again, which takes a lot of practice,
Yeah.
how you're getting in your own way in the moment you're getting in your own way. So you start to witness your own concepts.
Correct.
You can ask somebody, sometimes I'll make it a cognitive exercise, you know. For instance, I'll ask people and we'll explore their concepts about anger,
Hmm.
how they handle anger, how they handle sadness, how they handle joy, how they
Yeah.
handle sexual feeling,
Hmm.
where they think they stack up in relation to their peers. So they start to notice that stuff.
Yeah.
Again, when you accentuate that, there's a natural correction starts to
Hmm.
occur. I hope that's making some sense.
Oh,
It
absolutely.
does to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the next question that comes to my mind is a very simple one, right? What are the steps to be able to identify and then fix? I think identification you've already touched upon a little bit in terms of looking at your patterns, looking at your thoughts and what's creating your beliefs and thoughts, right? And then keep
Yeah, no,
practicing in terms of becoming more and more aware, right?
I appreciate you asking very much because, as I said, I want this to be very
Yeah.
practical for
Yeah.
people. So the first step and the most important step is simply noticing.
Hmm.
Okay. Simply noticing
Hmm.
what you're doing to yourself in the moment you're doing it.
Hmm.
If you're getting in your own way,
Hmm.
you will, if you're paying attention to your body,
Hmm.
you'll feel it because,
So,
as I said, your
Rick,
breathing will be.
sorry, can we take an example here, right? So I think that would be much more relatable for the audience. So if we can take an example as you're walking with the steps, right?
Your employer
Hmm.
looks at you
Hmm.
and then starts talking to somebody else and they
Mhm.
look your way.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there are a lot of things you could make up with that. But
Yeah.
let's imagine that based on your previous concepts, you assume that they're not liking you.
And they're judging you
Okay.
for some reason.
Yeah.
Hmm.
They're
Hmm.
displeased with the way you performed in the
Hmm.
last meeting.
Hmm.
So if you're telling me that,
Hmm.
or you're noticing that,
Hmm.
then what I want you to do is accentuate that fear.
Okay.
Make it a real horror movie.
Hmm.
Not only are they not liking me,
Hmm.
they're eventually going to report me or
Hmm.
write a report on me. I'm going to end up fired and I'm going to
Yep.
end up old, alone, and in an alley and get eaten
Hmm.
by rats.
Hmm.
But while you're doing that, notice what it feels like in your body.
Hmm.
Accentuate that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
So that kicks into play that Zen theory of change. I
Hmm.
free myself from this by really noticing how I'm contributing to it.
Okay.
Typically, I really want to respond to you. Any kind of angst
Hmm.
begins with external circumstances.
Hmm.
Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no doubt about that. And that chemical reaction, that electrical reaction is
Hmm.
natural.
Hmm.
You're supposed to feel that.
Right.
Okay. But what happens is people tend to hang on to it.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
Driving down the street, somebody blares a horn at you. Then they go speeding by you and they sneer at you,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Your initial reaction is completely human.
Correct.
But once they pass you, if you start noodling on it, like, why did that son of a gun do that to me? I've
Hmm.
got to get him back.
Hmm.
Whatever. That's you. You're doing that.
Correct.
So that's how awareness works in this
Hmm.
whole process.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay. If you want to continue to feel like this,
Hmm.
like a wired and wild-eyed maniac, be my guest.
Yeah.
I would rather you have as a baseline simple peace and contentment.
Hmm.
And if it's not in your foreground, have it in a close background.
Yep.
Simple peace and contentment is a natural state. It's a natural state. You don't have to create it.
Yep.
You have to quit creating the other stuff.
Correct.
And to quit creating it, you have to see it. And then it starts to disappear.
Hmm.
You bring it into the light, it starts to disappear. I guarantee it.
Hmm. This is step one, right? You feel
Right.
what you're feeling right now. You become aware of what you're feeling, right?
That's the main step. That's step one. You're
That's
right.
step one. Yep. What's next?
Okay. Well, the mistake that I see most therapists and coaches making
Hmm.
is they rush to step two,
Okay. Okay.
But step two is important.
Okay.
Step two, remember, step one is simply noticing
Hmm.
and accentuating the obvious.
So let me just go back. Since you said that mistake is going to step one too soon, maybe. So that means that you spend a lot of time doing step one again and again and again so that it becomes a habit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, if you and I were working and
Hmm.
we're in the same room and you're
Hmm.
sitting in a chair and you say, Rick,
Hmm.
I really want to be on that sofa,
Hmm.
that couch,
Hmm.
but I can't seem to move.
Hmm.
I'm going to say again, I
Hmm.
want to be in that couch.
Hmm.
I want to be in that couch. So you say it again. So I say, where are you now? Where are you
Hmm.
sitting? You say right here. So I want you to alternate these statements. I'm sitting right here.
Hmm.
Say it again. I'm sitting right here. Say it again.
Hmm.
Say, I'm sitting right here.
Hmm.
And I want to be over there.
Hmm.
Just go back and forth. In other words, instead of me saying, let me help you out of that chair and move you over there,
Hmm.
which is what a lot of therapists and coaches do,
Hmm.
it's wiser to say, simply notice how you're keeping yourself
Yeah.
from being on that couch. You take people into that.
Right.
So that's step one,
Hmm.
and that's the most important
Hmm.
step.
Hmm.
Step two, which again people tend to rush to too quickly,
Hmm.
is playing
Hmm.
with options.
Okay.
I want people to play with options. I want them to come up with alternative ways of being.
Hmm. Hmm.
But first, I want them to take total and complete responsibility for how they're contributing to their own misery,
Hmm.
getting in their own way in the moment they're getting in their own way
Hmm.
by simply noticing and accentuating it.
Hmm.
Because those kind of changes last.
Hmm.
You got any
Right.
questions about that, or you understand?
I'm still processing it. So
We'll take a minute because maybe I'm going too fast. I want people to get it.
yeah,
So
I think an
let me.
example might help. So
Okay, so somebody comes into my office or whatever. We're doing a Zoom session, and
hmm.
what comes up is they're intimidated by their employer. I keep
Hmm.
going to those examples because I've had a lot of those
Yeah.
recently. Or they're afraid they're going to go bankrupt or
Yeah.
whatever it happens
Hmm.
to be. So we accentuate the fears about that and
Hmm.
everything, and as opposed to playing with the option of, well, gosh, what are we going to do about that?
Hmm. Hmm.
How can we change your
Yeah.
business model?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to get to that, but first, I'm thinking, I don't want you to feel miserable until we take care of that situation.
Hmm.
I want to get you feeling good while we take care of that situation.
Hmm.
So you've got to notice how you're contributing to your own misery.
Right.
Step one.
Hmm.
Then step two is, well, let's play with some options about how you can change that,
mm, mm,
you know.
mm,
So we start talking about the pragmatic possibilities.
mm,
Somebody comes into my office, and after we drill down on what's going on, it turns out they tend to block their anger. They
mm,
always put on a happy face, even
mm,
when they're angry.
mm,
So I'm not going to say, well, you need to start expressing your anger to
mm,
everybody, because then you
mm.
got a whole new set of problems.
Correct.
You know, yeah, you're no longer bottled up, but you don't have any friends.
Yeah.
So, so I would be more likely to say, in terms of playing with options, first of all, what I want you to do is, between now and the next time we get together, I want you to precisely
Mm,
what you do with every little bitty irritation,
mm, mm,
what happens in your body,
mm,
what your tendency is, what you
mm,
tell yourself, and what
mm,
you do. And I want you to jot down what you
mm,
notice.
mm,
Okay, then I may say, well, next session, there's a whole hundreds of options on an
mm.
anger continuum that you can use. Let's start playing with some of them,
Okay.
such as staying current with your anger,
Mm,
matching your voice and facial expression to what you're feeling,
mm,
and describing yourself.
mm,
You're an authority on your experience.
mm,
So to be able to say to somebody, I'm angry,
mm,
or I don't like what you just did,
mm,
or that hurt.
mm.
I mean, you're living your experience. All you got to
Right.
do is report it out
Right.
in 1 to 5 sentences, no more, and
Mm,
then hush.
mm.
Ready for step three?
Yeah.
Step one is simply notice and
Yeah.
accentuate the
Yeah.
obvious.
Yeah.
Accentuate what you're
Mm,
doing.
mm.
Step two is play with options.
Sure.
Simply notice,
Mm,
don't work at it.
mm,
And play with
mm,
options, don't
mm,
work at it.
mm,
Fool around,
mm,
fool around,
mm,
play.
mm,
Third step, there's only 3 steps,
mm,
is be in process. And what
mm.
that means is keep simply noticing and playing with options
Okay.
over and over and over and over and over again. You
It's a
don't tame your
cycle.
gremlin once.
Yeah.
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 You don't tame your gremlin once and for all.
Yeah.
It's a breath to breath experience, but you can get so good at it.
And that's where
Yeah.
practice comes in, right? I mean, that's the practice loop, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just, once you get good at it, and I'm no master,
Hmm.
but I'm certainly a sincere student. I've been
Yeah.
practicing decades,
Yeah.
and it just gets so easy. I'm
Yeah.
doing this because sometimes I picture my gremlin right there and just flick it off.
Correct.
Or I have one person that just does this.
Hmm.
But you can't just fool with that. You gotta
True.
really,
True.
get into it.
True. Absolutely. So now let's talk a little bit about the environment that you might find yourself in, right? Does environment create some hurdles in the process? Obviously, I mean, there must be some new triggers that come in. And so as you're practicing this, there are some stimuli around you that's basically triggering you again and again, right? Or in new and different ways. How do you
Yeah.
handle that?
Well, the first step is to be very, very clear, experientially clear,
Hmm.
where you end and everything else begins on this physical plane.
Right.
A miraculous sheath known as your skin.
Mm-hmm.
It's about, people think this is the thing that I get the most emails about, used to be letters about. I
Okay.
don't get the skin thing. And then the next thing would be, I got the skin thing.
Okay.
All I'm saying is your skin is surrounded by an energy field.
Okay.
Every experience you have in this life,
Yeah.
every one of them happens within the boundary defined by your skin.
Right.
Events occur around you, and many of them involve you even if you don't want them to.
Yeah.
I mean, I worked with people right after explosions when the bombing happened in Oklahoma City. I was there
Hmm.
that day.
Hmm. Hmm.
But, things get to you.
Hmm.
Somebody sneers at you. Somebody,
Correct.
blares a horn at you, like I was
Correct.
saying earlier. That's natural. But what you have complete control over, once you've reacted, you got to react,
Hmm.
okay, is how long you hang on to that angst, that stress. So what you do is you notice, that's why I said accentuate.
Yeah.
Notice the key points of tension, discomfort,
Hmm.
pain,
Hmm.
accentuate it. then exhale fully through your mouth.
Yeah.
If you're by yourself, make a sound. Ha!
Hmm.
You got to just be relentless about letting
Hmm.
go of this. You're
Yeah.
not by yourself. You have to kind of be sneaky,
Yeah.
but you exhale fully as if you're exhaling that poison. And when you inhale, you think in terms of oxygenating all of those key points of tension that you noticed.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
But to answer your question, yeah, it always begins with external circumstances.
Yeah.
You know, there are 8 billion people on the planet, and every one of us has their own ideas about what's best for the rest of us. The chances, the chances, and people will say this, well, I got to get my ducks in a row. You're never going to get your ducks in a
Yeah,
row.
that's true. That's true.
They're not going to
Somebody's
stay
gonna come
there.
and poke the ducks out, right?
Yeah. You
Yeah,
might get
for
them in
sure.
a row for a few
Yeah.
minutes, but they've
Correct.
got their own ideas, you know.
Correct. Correct.
So it's an inner
Yeah.
step. Number 1
Hmm.
is remember you want to feel at peace. Step
Yeah.
number 2 is remember it's an inner game, an
Yeah.
inside job. Inner game is a term of Tim Galway's, and I really like that
Hmm.
term.
Hmm.
Uh, Step number 2 is it's an inner game, an
Hmm.
inside job. Step number 3 is what we're talking about now. Remember where you end
Yeah.
and everything else
Yeah.
begins.
Yeah.
Miraculous sheath known as your skin. You got to feel air on your skin, clothes on your skin.
Hmm.
Seriously,
Hmm.
people think, well, I think they think it can't be that simple, Rick.
Yeah. But I think that's the self-awareness loop that you come back to, right? Once you start doing that, you become aware of who you are, where your boundaries end, and what's going inside and what's outside. I think that's basically what it gives you in essence. No?
Right. But it's not a philosophy. It's
Yeah,
a physical thing. So
true.
you really have to feel air on your skin and clothes
Hmm.
on your skin.
Hmm. Yeah.
You do. I mean,
I'm gonna
that's
try
what,
that. I'm gonna try that
yeah,
definitely.
I hope that everybody listening will try it. Just think of, your skin surrounded by an energy field, so it's very sensitive.
Hmm.
So it's a very sensitive organ. It's an
Hmm.
organ,
Yeah.
but it's also a boundary. It's
Correct.
like a vibrating boundary. You're walking around in this spacesuit.
Correct. Correct.
Kind of, so things are going to get to you. They're
Right.
supposed to, but we don't have to hang on to that angst.
So, Rick, when you're working with your coachees, right? What's the typical process like? How much time do you spend on helping them build the step 1 and then move to step 2 and then step 3? What is the process like, or what is the role of a coach in this entire process and journey?
Well, I mean, it differs a little bit with every person, but
Hmm.
I'm always gonna emphasize the simply noticing
Hmm.
and the accentuating the obvious.
Hmm.
And I do that, I do it with individuals, I do it with group. I just did a presentation for the Ministry of Justice in the UK for a select group of people,
Hmm.
200 people, and I'm getting ready to do it for another 200 people. I don't have much time with them because I'm the keynote guy.
Hmm. Hmm.
But those are the skills I want to get across with them. When somebody comes into my office for individual
Yep.
work or a family, or I'm
Hmm.
working with a law firm,
Hmm.
I can experientially
Yep.
illustrate, help people learn how to really notice.
Hmm.
It's pretty easy to notice what's going on in your body.
Yeah.
Your breathing it's like a gauge on a car. When
Correct.
it gets shallow, you cut off your body and you
Right.
tend to go into the world of mind. And it's important to notice
Right.
that because there's some bad neighborhoods up there.
Yep.
There's some good stuff. There's some bad neighborhoods.
Right.
It's where your gremlin hangs out.
So, one of the statements that you mentioned in between, right? Limiting beliefs are not necessarily negative. Sometimes they're positive as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
How do they contribute towards your success or maybe failure in some cases? Because maybe they prop you up where you shouldn't be propping up, probably.
Yeah. Well, you got to be careful because, I mean, I would rather you have a self-concept than a positive one than a negative.
Yeah, for sure.
But either one can cause you problems. Your
Right.
gremlin's going to use either
Right.
because if you've got a positive concept and it's not real, you're just kind
Right.
of positively trying to affirm yourself,
Right.
your gremlin will use that because your gremlin is going to let you know how inadequate you are,
Right.
not living up to your own standard
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And it's one thing if you're doing some constructive thinking about that, well, I wonder how I can be more productive, or I wonder how I can manage my anger differently
Right.
with Joe Schmo over there. We've got to work out this conflict.
Hmm.
That's constructive thinking. But
Hmm.
when your gremlin gets a hold of it, it's going to be, uh, there's something wrong with you.
Hmm. Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
that's where that inner critic strategy comes
Yeah.
in.
Well, awesome. I think this was super, super insightful for me for sure. And I'm dead sure that, it's going to be very, very interesting for our audience as well, Rick.
Well,
So,
I hope so. I realize I talked a lot and
no,
talked
no,
pretty
it
fast,
was
but
super, super helpful. I think I definitely learned a lot in terms of understanding a very simple framework, but I'm sure it is not as simple as it sounds in terms of practice. It takes lots and lots of practice and mistakes as well as you're gonna make while trying this out.
yeah,
Uh,
but the benefits, this is the part I like
yeah,
the best.
yeah,
The benefits keep on. It's
correct.
not like you get to a static state of, oh,
Right.
this is good. From my experience,
Yeah.
you just not only do you, I'll speak in the I frame, not only am I enjoying more and more moments,
Hmm.
but the moments are getting richer.
Right.
And I just
True.
really like that. I
True.
feel like
True.
this is a precious life. You
Yeah.
want to enjoy it.
Correct.
So let me just mention, by the
Please.
way, in
Hmm.
case people don't know, the first book, if people want to know more, is
Hmm.
called Taming Your Gremlin,
Hmm.
Surprisingly Simple Method for Getting Out of Your Own Way.
Hmm.
The sequel to it is also a HarperCollins,
Hmm.
and it's called A Masterclass in Gremlin Taming.
Okay.
And it is, I would read the first one first,
Hmm.
I think.
Hmm.
But I really like the second one, and it
Okay.
has a lot of things for coaches and therapists in it
Right.
too.
Right.
So,
Well, awesome. Well, there you go, folks. I hope you found this session to be as insightful as I did. I know there's going to be a lot of practice, and when you practice, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. You definitely have the books to go to, but if you need help, you know where to contact Rick. Rick is very approachable. Reach out to him on LinkedIn. He'll be happy to connect with you and help you out to tame your gremlins.
yeah, people can go to tamingyourgremlin.com,
There you go.
and we're not selling anything.
Hmm.
If you see something you like and you
Hmm.
want to have a session or something, you let me know.
There you go.
Okay.
All
All
right.
right.
So thank you so much for joining in, Rick.
Thank
And
you, man. Thank you. Keep up your good work. I don't mean just what you're doing with leadership and everything. Really, it's an honor to be invited by you. So thank
honor is
you.
all ours, Rick. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Betcha. Bye.
Bye. All right, folks. You take care till the next episode of the RiseUp Radio. And I'm going to see you with a new speaker with a new topic, but similarly, very, very insightful. So till then, you take care and see you soon.